Hey everyone, how are you? Um, just got back from an event. We're one of the local churches here doing a food drive. So I just want to kind of give you a little feedback I got on that. I know I was talking yesterday about going to the beach and, how the way people dress there are obviously immodest, right? You're showing off all your skin. Everything is there to see, guys and girls, but, your breast, your butt, everything. Like everything that should be reserved for marriage, you're basically showing everyone in public, you know, that happens to be there. So that's it's not God's intention. Adam and Eve, He covered them, after they realized they were naked. So we're supposed to be, modest in the way we dress. And now that I've seen it and I picked it up at the beach, and I was thinking, oh, the beach is probably the biggest issue. But it's not just the beach. It's everywhere I go. It's how everyone dresses. Male and female, both, right? Um, I just got back from this was a church event. It's a pretty big church actually. I did a little walk around, and like some churches, they were loaded. It looked like they had everything, gigantic, like a gym area for the kids, their own basketball courts. Like it was massive. And granted, they've been there like 40, 50 years, so it's not like they built it overnight. But it was really, really nice. It was a really nice spot. So they're doing well. But the people that were there, there's a lot of females there, a lot of males. I guess there's maybe like, I don't know, 70% females for whatever reason. I don't know what it is about like charity work, but I typically see like more women there than men. So I'm not sure what that means. But there was a lot of people there, and they were doing like a little kids event inside the church. And I was looking, just looking around, right? I'm observing how people operate. And all the women there, aside from a few, there were a few there that were dressed modestly. Everyone else, not at all actually. Um, Everything they wore was like tight fitting, like tight jeans, tight yoga pants, tight tops. Either they were showing their cleavage outright, which we shouldn't be doing, because that's reserved, for your husband or your wife. If it's a woman, obviously it's going to be a husband. But yeah, it's reserved for your husband in this particular scenario with the females, and you're showing it off to everyone who's out in public. And I mean, it was from all ages, right? From young teen girls all the way up to probably like 40 or 50. It was all of them. They're showing their cleavage. The ones that weren't showing their cleavage had on clothes that were so tight that nothing was left to the imagination. I mean, you might as well have been showing them, because everything was, you know what I'm talking about, right? They're either showing them off through the tight clothing, or they just literally show them off with the low cut and just tons of skin, which is unholy. We're supposed to be dressed modestly, and there's certain parts of your body for a female, that are reserved for your husband, right? That's God's intention. And now I see it everywhere I go. It started off at the beach, and now I see it everywhere. And this was at a church event. And I'm not saying that these girls were dressed like this wasn't club gear, People know that term. It wasn't like club gear. There wasn't like super high mini skirts. If you saw these people, and if I had seen these people maybe like 2 years ago, I wouldn't have known any different. I'd been like, what are you talking about? These people are dressed normally. Yeah, she's got a tight shirt on. Yeah, she's showing cleavage. She's got tight pants on. She's got yoga pants on. What's the problem? She's dressed like a normal American human being. That's it. But, now that I've woken up and realized some things, yeah, it's all immodest. You're showing off, you're accentuating parts of your body that are designed, if you're a female, for a husband. That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's what God expects. So that's God's intention. And I'm just letting you know, but it's everywhere, and now I see it. And it's so impure, and the girls, they don't know any different. They're like, what do you mean? Like everyone at school wears this, everyone at college wears this, everyone in my church wears this. Yeah, you just put on jeans. Yeah, they're super tight, so what? You get on the bed and you pull those babies on and you go out and you do your thing. But what you're doing is wrong. So someone has to tell you, and that's me, because God doesn't want us dressing like that. We're supposed to be modest in our appearance. I even switch up my shirts, I guess, because they were too like the mediums. I still like to work out. I want to be in good shape just so I can go out there and volunteer and lift up pallets and move things around. Like I need my body to work. But even I was guilty of it. With the tight shirts, the mediums, I had to go with the large. It's not as form fitting. A little more modest in appearance and more humble. It's more humble. So I'm going to have to clean out the closet of some of that stuff. But yeah, it's a problem. It's problematic. You're showing off parts of your body that are reserved for marriage. And not only that, you're going to cause men to trip up. You're going to cause men to lust. And I know you're going to say, oh, well, that's not my fault that they're lusting. Well, kind of is. Because, I mean, genetically, I guess we're kind of inclined to reproduce. It seems like that anyway. I'm sure someone could do a study on that, or they already have. But it's very difficult for a man. Like if you're prancing around with a skin-tight shirt, or you've got a low cut where any of your cleavage is showing, for a man, and I'll admit it, like I've got really good eye discipline. I work on it daily. So, I mean, I can immediately, pivot. Even out of the corner of my eye, I can see it coming. I can pivot away. But it doesn't mean that you're correct in wearing it, You should be looking out for the men out there that are naturally inclined to look for that stuff. So, and girls too, right? I mean, obviously I'm a guy, so I'm biased in this conversation. But for a girl, it's the same thing, right? You see some dude walking around jacked up with muscles and, looking good, like great physique, and he's got some super tight shirt on. It's going to do the same thing to you, maybe, right? It's going to make you lust. You're going to have impure thoughts, and you're going to be valuing that person based off of their looks, not off what they talk to you about, not off, their core values or anything and things that they want to do in life. You're going to be basing everything off their body. Because when you're wearing skin-tight clothing and you're showing your cleavage and your buttocks and everything in areas that are, reserved for a marriage, it's problematic, and you're distracting them, and you're producing lust. You may not be doing it intentionally. It's the culture here, and I get it. You're just doing what everyone else does. But, I'm sure back in biblical times, no one would have dressed like that except for, certain professions. I don't want to say it. But over time, somehow that's where we got. So I got this webpage. I'm going to make it quick. I got an appointment here in a little bit, but let me see if I can get this up here. There we go. Okay. Yeah, so like tight clothing and modesty. It's wayoflife.org. So I'll just go through a couple things here, right? Like tight, clinging attire is immodest as skimpy attire because the woman's figure is emphasized and accented, and the man's attention is directed to that which is forbidden outside of marriage. That's correct. That's what I mentioned. You're accentuating areas that, men shouldn't be really looking at unless you're married. Ideally, that's God's intention. He doesn't want us prancing around showing off, certain organs that create lust, Men are strongly influenced sexually by the eye gate and are attracted to women's curves. That's correct. And I'm telling you, pornography doesn't help that at all. It just reinforces that. And then you have women who dress like that. And the whole fashion industry pushes this. And the fashion industry is a gigantic reason for this. Because they design these clothes, they get the influencers, they get the girls and guys to wear this stuff, which creates lust in other people. The immodest clothing industry understands these things and strives to dress women seductively rather than modestly. That's absolutely true. It's a business. They're trying to make money, and their job is lust. That's basically their job. Is they want to create lust with their clothing, tight fitting, high dresses, skirts, things like that, various tops that show off a lot of skin, and they want to make money, right? So it's about the money. But it also creates a very unholy culture that we all live in currently. It's important to understand that tight, form-fitting clothes can be just as sexually disturbing to a man as skimpy clothes. Absolutely. So even if you're covered, right? Let's say you've got some kind of outfit on. Yoga pants, that's a good example, right? Everyone loves yoga pants, right? All the guys love them, girls love them, right? We're not supposed to be wearing them because they create lust. They're immodest. I think you would all agree. What do you think of when you see yoga pants? So tight, form-fitting clothes can be just as sexually disturbing to a man as skimpy clothes. Correct. So it doesn't mean that they only have to have on like a mini skirt for it to be an issue, right? It can be, you can have yoga pants, right? Yoga pants cover all the skin, right? So the skin's not the issue. It's literally sucked onto your body to where the form of your body, there's nothing left to the imagination. You're not covering up anything. You're drawing attention to your butt and your front area and your thighs and everything else. Things that are reserved for your husband to see, when you're married and in this scenario. And obviously this goes both ways, right? This goes for men too. Men have the same issue with tight-fitting clothing. I see it all the time. Or just walking around with no shirt on. Same thing. It's the same issue. Scroll down here. In our survey of Christian men on the issue of women's dress, we found that tight clothing is at least as much of a potential problem for men as skimpy clothing. Correct. If it's form-fitting, if it's sucked, looks like it's painted onto your body, that's the same thing as just showing the skin. There's really no difference there. Most of the men indicated that tight skirts and tight blouses and form-fitting jeans hold a very great potential for lust. 100%. You are creating lust because you're accentuating, sexual organs, essentially things that are, a husband would see after marriage or a wife would see after marriage. You don't even need to see skin. They provide all the curves, right? Like I said, yoga pants, things like that, even tight tops, super tight tops, it may go, they may have sleeves on, right? It may go all the way down your arm, might cover your, from here all the way down, but it doesn't matter. If it's see-through and you can see your bra, or if it's like skin tight, you're not hiding anything. It's just like you're showing the skin directly because of how form-fitting the attire is. It should be a little looser, a little baggier. You shouldn't be advertising your body, It's unholy. That's not what God wants to see. And, we don't really live by godly principles, apparently. Because we're really far off the mark, it looks like. One thing I see in my church is tight clothing. Yes, 100%. Oh, it may very well be covered, but it's revealing the shape of a woman. This can be even more tantalizing to a man. Exactly. So either women or men are showing way too much skin. Shorts are way too high. You're seeing like the thigh and things like that, and the crotch region, the butt, the chest, all of that. You know what I'm talking about. So it can either be you're showing too much skin or it's just skin tight. Either way, it's unholy and we shouldn't be doing it. And like I said, I was doing the same thing. I didn't even realize it, right? I'm in America, man. You work out, you want to look good, you want to be in good shape, right? It's good to be in good shape. But it's different when you wear clothes designed to accentuate that. I could go get back in my mediums and I could, look a little more hard and stuff like that when I'm walking around. But that's going to create a pride issue for me, right? It could create an envy issue for someone else, which I'm not in that good a shape, but maybe. And then obviously it would cause lust for someone else potentially, and that's the issue. So we're trying to avoid sin, either creating it ourselves by being immodest and being prideful, and we're also trying to help other people by limiting their risk of lust by doing this. So tight clothing, showing a lot of skin, all the same thing. The point is that it's not merely the type of clothing that can trip a man up, rather it is the amount and the level of cling to the body, right? And I know that says man, but this is male and female, right? So it doesn't matter. It could be a guy, it could be a girl. I've seen plenty of guys walking around with the tank tops on. They're rocking the biceps, they did some push-ups in the parking lot. They want to walk around the beach or anywhere, right? The top's off. Those are areas that are reserved for his wife. It's the same thing for women as for men, right? I'm a guy, so I might talk about the female side of the house a little more often, and I apologize for that. Really tight clothing at the level of clean. Oh, this part's interesting. I thought this was interesting when I read this. Tight pants were created by Calvin Klein, a bisexual fashion designer, when his super tight pants appeared in 1978. I was born in 1978, actually. They sold 200,000 pairs in the first week. I never knew that tight pants were created by Calvin Klein, a bisexual fashion designer. I never knew that. It's interesting, though. It's an interesting discussion point. And tights worn as pants, leggings, I guess that's like yoga pants, I'm not sure, were designed by Giovanni Versace, a homosexual fashion designer who was murdered by a homosexual in 1997. That's when I graduated high school. Go Sandalwood Saints. That's interesting. Homosexual fashion designer and a bisexual fashion. I don't know. That's what the article says. Godly pilgrim women who have set their affection on things above refuse to be conformed to this world and do not follow its filthy, rebellious fashions. Yeah. Right. It's true. I guess the Amish people were onto something. Yeah, I guess if you're a godly person, right, you wouldn't dress like that. And it's going to be so strange for people to hear this, because I know it's like you grew up in this culture. You might be like a really religious girl, and like you go to church and you can spit out scripture left and right. You've memorized, all the books and chapters. You might know all of that. But then again, at the same time, you're hanging out with your girls, you're going out, and you're wearing like some top that accentuates your breasts, right? You might have jeans on that accentuate your butt, things like that. But at the same time, you're like, I'm a good Christian. I know all the books and verses. I can recite them. I know all the worship songs. I go to church every Sunday. I go to a soup kitchen on the weekends. Like, I'm good. I'm doing everything right. And you're actually not. And I understand that you don't understand because I just understood this recently. But, you're supposed to be modest. That goes for like extravagant jewelry, very expensive items, obviously tight-fitting clothing, your skin showing. You're either showing the cleavage because your shirt's coming down way too low, or it's just form-fitting and everything is showing no matter what, even if it's covered all the way down, even your arms, right? I don't think we're supposed to be showing thighs and things like that. That's way too high, way too high. Way more conservative, down towards the knees or whatever. But I don't want to get into exact dress requirements. Never worked in the fashion industry. All I know is that God doesn't expect you to be showing off things that are designed, to be done privately with your husband or wife, privately, not out in public, not at the beach, not while you're walking around town. You're not supposed to be selling your body as a sexual object by accentuating those things, when you walk around and how you dress. We're supposed to be conservative. And no, that doesn't mean Republican. I'm not getting political, just conservative in dress, modest and humble. And we don't do that. And I'm noticing this at a church. We're doing a food giveaway. The people that organized it, even those females that were there, had the tight-fitting jeans on, the tight shirt, everything that everyone else wears. And these are good people, They're doing good work. They're out there feeding people that need help, that don't have the money to get the food. They're at a church. The church is trying to do the right thing. And they don't even realize it because I didn't realize it. So I totally understand why they don't realize it, but I'm just telling you, God, that's not God's intention for us to dress like that. Showing off, accentuating parts of our body that should be shared with our husband or wife in a marriage. And it's going to be so different than the message is not going to be received well. I know it isn't because of the culture that I live in, especially in America. I haven't done a ton of traveling yet, so it's hard for me to say in other parts of the country, but obviously I see it, news channels and things like that. And I see how the newscasters dress and how people dress in general, like on YouTube and things like that. So pretty sure this is a problem around the world. And there are probably some religions where they dress a lot more conservatively, and hey, I get it. I understand. They're doing a lot better in that dress department than we are. Some of them might take it way too far and you're like literally covered head to toe, but you know what? I understand where you're coming from. You're trying to be modest in front of God and live in submission to God, and I get that. So here in America, all I can say for sure is here in America, it's a huge issue. The whole fashion industry in general is extremely problematic because they push the type of clothing that is very sexualized. It's designed to accentuate your butt, your breast, the midsection of your body. The clothing is designed to create lust in other people. That's what the clothing is designed to do. And then you get your influencers in there, right? And they're pushing the clothing, and you get it in the magazines, you get it into the movies and the television shows and things like that, and you push that sex culture, which they're doing. And they're very successful because I've seen how pretty much everyone dresses. At the beach, I saw a couple of people, maybe 2 or 3, that had outfits on that I'm like, wow, that's pretty modest, I think they were like, one pieces, but they had like a wraparound kind of sash dress thing on there, and they're, they had arms on there a little bit, so some of them went all the way down, maybe like for sun protection and things like that, but they were very modest, and it didn't look crazy, it looked normal, and these people, like I said, it's modesty, and then everyone else is basically bouncing around in thongs, which is essentially just underwear you're wearing in public. You're showing off everything for a female that should be reserved for your husband. You're showing that off to the world. You're prancing around like that. And it's no different. These people are at church that I saw today. No one there thought they were dressed incorrectly. Everyone was walking around thinking, I'm dressed appropriately. What do you mean inappropriate? I've got jeans on. I've got a shirt on. Big deal. Okay. Well, those jeans look like you painted them on. You can see everything. There's nothing left to the imagination. You're obviously accentuating parts of your body, that your husband should see only, or your wife, depending on the scenario. But this place has been fallen for so long that no one even realizes it, right? 2,000 years ago, I guarantee you they didn't dress like that. They were a lot more modest, I would assume, aside from certain professions that, were selling other products. So, they probably didn't dress all that modestly. Let's see. But yeah, godly pilgrim women who have set their affection on things above refuse to be conformed to this world and do not follow its filthy, rebellious fashions. That's it. The Christian woman's modesty must come from the inside out. It comes from a sober and shamefaced spirit. Right. So, I guess it's just, a wake-up call for everyone out there, and for me too, right? I got to make some changes here too. But, if we're going to follow the way, it's different. And people are going to know, right, that you're a Christian. They should know by how you dress. If they look at you and they see modesty and humility and compassion and things like that, they're going to know you're a Christian. You won't have to tell them. But if you tell someone a Christian at the same time and you've got on skin-tight jeans or yoga pants or anything, super short skirt, you got everything showing up here, you're showing your cleavage, you've got tons of jewelry on, luxurious items all over you, that's not Christian. There's nothing modest about that. There's nothing humble about that. And it's unholy to do that because you're accentuating or you're basically selling parts of your body, right? You're putting it out there that these are the parts of the body I want you to focus on. I want you to focus on this skin-tight shirt, which is showing off my boobs. I want you to focus on my butt because I got skin-tight pants on. I want you looking at my thighs because everything is skin-tight. If you're a Christian female, you might think you're a good Christian, but I'm telling you, God's expectations for us is humility and modesty, right? Love God humbly. And if you're out there creating sin, maybe you probably don't know you're doing it, but if you're out there and you're creating sin in other people, you're creating lust in other people, God would not appreciate that. Why would he? And I say he, sorry, right? God's not male or female, God is light. So sorry about that, I just want to clarify. But God's expectation is not for us to run around showing off everything that should be reserved for a marriage. So we should live modestly and humbly, right? And the way I see people dress, with clothes like clinging to their body, like just, like it's painted on, that is not God's expectation for us. And I realize that is absolutely foreign to the culture that we have. That might sound a little crazy. I'm just relaying the information to you, letting you know, those are God's expectations. So you may want to look at that. You may want to go through your closet and you'll probably have to throw out almost everything in there. If you're like any of the girls that I know girls close to me. Sorry. But girls close to me, I used to work in an office, right? So I would see it all the time. They're walking down, just girls I used to work with, right? And they're wearing stuff that's like super low cut. And we're in an office, like people are trying to work. And they're wearing these super low cut shirts that like leave nothing to the imagination. Everything's just kind of out there. It's either out there outright and there's nothing covering it, or it was like skin tight and it's just everything's right out there, right? So it's distracting everyone and it's creating lust in other people. So you're causing other people to sin, whether you know it or not. And they're wearing the skin tight clothing and they're walking around in the office. And guess what? We had a lot of problems with people in the office being distracted, and the men chasing around the women and the women chasing around the men. And then you have, issues with them because they would get into relationships inside the office, outside of marriage, don't know exactly what they were doing. And I've made that mistake too. So I'll be honest about that. But it just creates issues, right? Now, had they dressed modestly and if they were Christians, they would have saved that for marriage anyway. So there wouldn't be any question, right? There wouldn't be anyone like, oh, I want to take this girl out because, maybe we'll get to sleep together. It really should have been the guys like, no, man, that girl's a Christian. Trust me, nothing's going to happen until you're married. You know, you're not getting in her pants until you get married. That's just the way it is. And that kind of removes the temptation. So if you're a Christian, they should know that by the way you dress and the way you operate and the way you handle yourself in public. And if they know that, you won't probably be the one they're chasing so much because they know, like, no, this girl's going to make you wait till marriage. So you could tell by the way she's dressed, she's not putting it out there. She's not advertising her body. But we had a ton of problems with that in the office. And I used to be the ombudsman there, so I would get pulled into these cases. And it's like, this person's dating that one's dating that one. And at the time, I never even realized it. Like, I really didn't pick up on this completely until like the last couple of days. And I went to the beach, and now today I'm volunteering. But I get it, right? It happens because women are out there, and men. It's not just women. I'm trying to be good about that. So it's women and men. But they're just dressed in very form-fitting clothing. They're putting it out there to the world. Hey, I want to sell my body. I want to show you how good my physique is. I want to show you these organs that you shouldn't see until we're married, things like that. But it's a big problem. And the fashion industry is a huge issue because they're pushing it all. Because guess what? Sex sells, right? Why do you think the pornography industry is so big? Sex sells. And the clothes designers, they know this, right? So they're going to be pushing sex. Clothes designers want you to be wearing things that are higher. The more skin, the better, right? Because they're probably going to sell more product. And that also destroys the family. It's supposed to be like a traditional family setup. You wait till marriage for sex. There's none of this like dating and hookups and stuff like that. Nothing like the place we live, right? The culture we live in, at least in America where I am. I'll say that. I haven't lived in any other country longer than, I went to Israel for like 2 weeks, but, and that was a culture shock, right? Awesome trip, but a culture shock for me. So I definitely need to get out there more. But at least in America, I can tell you, not a lot of modesty here, not much at all. And it's a problem. So I'm just relaying the information. So hopefully if you see this and you're a Christian male or female, start acting the part. People should know that you're, a Christian by the way you dress, right? If you're following the way, you'll have clothing on, of course, right? We're not going to go out naked, but it's not going to be like super tight clothing. You're not going to have the super tight shirts, like ripped shirts, like showing off all your muscles. If you're a girl, you're not going to be in it. Your cleavage is not going to show in what you're wearing, right? You're not going to have a ton of skin here. You're not going to be wearing form-fitting clothing, tight jeans, tight yoga pants, things like that. Conservative, baggier clothing. Save that stuff for your husband or wife. That'll be their treat when y'all are married. And that's it. So I just wanted to share that information. I got to run out for an appointment. But it's unholy, the way that we dress. The culture here is completely broken. It's not based on Christian ideals. It's greed. Let's go back to the chart here. We'll keep it simple. At least in my country, right? Pride is out of control. Greed is out of control. Lust is out of control. And all that creates envy, which is out of control. Indulgence or gluttony, whatever term you want to use, out of control. It's on the news all the time. Wrath, yes. People we've got an election coming up. If you don't think wrath is a problem, just wait. Just watch the news. You'll see it. Just watch the news. And then sloth, you have some people not doing anything. So, get busy. God's got a purpose for you in your life. So figure out what that is and get busy. Don't run around just focusing on money your whole life, because that's not God's intention for you, right? You need money to survive. I get that. People need to work. But that's not why we're here. We're here to learn, and we're here to walk with God in a godly way, in a holy way. And the way people dress today, the vast majority of people that I see in my local region, and they look pretty normal from what I'm comparing to everything else that I see online, the way we dress is unholy. And I've been guilty of that myself, and I'm working on it, right? I'm making changes. I'm getting better. So that's it. I just wanted to let you know. So be very careful with your clothing. There are certain parts of your body that should be reserved for marriage with your husband or wife. And, that's when that person can see them. But we shouldn't be walking around in skin-tight clothing and high clothing, showing skin off all over the place. It's not biblical. It's not holy, and that's not what God wants to see. All right. But that's it. Love you all. Have a blessed week. See ya.